What's up? What's up? What's up, guys? Ooh, let me turn down my sound just real quick. What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to another edition of Unwind with Raya. Um, Welcome. Glad you're here. I don't know if you noticed, but we've got a special guest star today, and it is this guy right here. I got a new addition. Probably gonna set this thing off right. Gonna be where. Yeah. Got a new plant. I don't know. We gotta come up with a name for him. I'm not sure, but we'll figure it out. He's gonna brighten up the space. Kind of give a between two ferns kind of vibes. But anyways, welcome. It's Wednesday night. So I hope everyone had an amazing Wednesday. Hope it wasn't too bad. It's hump day. So middle of the week. Hopefully you had a good day at work or in class or whatever you're up to. And you're ready for an awesome evening of drinking and chatting. We're going to talk about the 90s today, which is hands down my favorite decade. So, yes, I'm biased because I was born then, but it'll be all right because we're here. And it's April 5th. So we just entered a new month, which is always fun. I got a nice crisp cold blue moon. And actually blue moon is perfect for me because I only drink every once in a blue moon. But yeah, so I only drink every once in a while, so this is actually pretty rare that a streaming day and a drinking day coincide. But I'm kind of weird. I don't know. I don't drink too often, but when I do, it's like a Thursday night when I know that. Okay, what's the best way to put this? Okay. So remember how I said drinking always makes you feel weird the next morning, or I don't like the feeling after, the next morning. So because of that, I'll drink. I don't want to waste my weekends. I don't want to waste my Saturday feeling that crappy feeling, right? So I never drink on Fridays or Saturdays. Not never, but I don't like to. Ideally, I drink on Thursdays because you still got to go to work on Friday, right? So I don't mind waking up feeling crappy on Friday morning because I just end up going to work and then I forget about it and it's not too bad. It's much better than feeling crappy on Saturday and then just feeling crappy and doing nothing all day on Saturday. For some reason, the fact that I have to get out of the house and go to work on Friday and I still feel crappy, it just feels like regular. So I like doing it that way because then I get a fun Thursday night, but I still get my fun, perfect feeling Saturday and Sunday, right? What you mean that joke hurt? What's up, bootleg Dylan? Is my blue moon joke? Man, stick around. There's gonna be way worse jokes. So that's probably we're starting at the top, the very top. What you up to, Dylan? Anything fun today? But yeah, so I don't really drink too much, but when I do, it's usually Blue Moon, and I'm not sponsored yet, but I do like their stuff a lot because it reminds me of summertime. And me and my buddy KB were actually just talking about this. It's drinking beer in the wintertime is not something I really do. It's more like a summertime vibe for me. I like having warm nights and a cold beer. That just makes sense to me. But when it's cold out, I never crave beer. Ever. I rarely crave alcohol at all. Oops, sorry. I rarely crave alcohol at all. So something about the beer and the summer nights just fits. Maybe I've seen too many Corona commercials and they got me like they got me with that vibe. So I guess whoever's marketing it is perfect, but I'm a sucker. I got. Um but yeah, come on in, pull up a seat, get cozy. We're gonna talk about the '90s today. So if anybody's got any '90s topics or any '90s thoughts or memories, man, shoot them in the chat. Shoot them. You know, I got. Like I said, I'm a little biased because I was born in 1991, so I kind of got the full experience of growing up entirely in the '90s, right? And I never considered myself like, my brother was born in '89, my older brother. And so he's technically an 80s baby, right? Which is boo. Sorry for all you 80s babies out there, but it ain't like it was with the 90s, man. Y'all that hair rock, that classic hair rock, like, hall notes, like synth stuff. And we got the grunge. We got the Nirvana, the Alice in Chains. We got the, mid 90s, boy bands and girl bands. And we got that, late 90s R&B / gangster rap. We got the good. Even though every decade says that there's the best decade, right? Everybody who's born in the 80s thinks the 80s was the best, or grew up in the 80s thinks it's the best. Everybody in the 70s, so I'm just continuing the trend. 90s for life. Like 90s was a whole vibe. Yeah, we miss you. It's not the same without you. It really isn't. It really isn't. Oh man, that's funny. We'll get into some memories, but yeah, 90s, man. I'm more in the Goosebumps. I don't know if you can see the Goosebumps. That's the throwback. One of my favorite shows of all time, and books, man. The R.L. Stine Goosebumps. If you never got to read those growing up, oh my goodness, those were a staple. Those were like creepy and kind of edgy and just like they were like, what's a good? They were like just before you entered into like the scary movie like realm. It was all about the Goosebumps. They had the like the edition that was on TV, and they also had the books. But I prefer the books because I'm much more of like when I'm reading, I get way more immersed when I'm reading. So you'd read some of those at night, boy. Nah. I know we talked about nightmares and things, but when I was a kid, I remember when I'd read some of those and they hit too hard, I would definitely get some Goosebumps related nightmares. Like those things, it just spooky. Like for like a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, reading them things, like they'll get you. Man, I could read it. I'm 31 right now, and if I read an R.L. Stine book before I go to bed, I might have some problems. Like, it's been a minute since I wet the bed, but like, it's also been a minute since I read R.L. Stine. And I'm not saying they're correlated, but I haven't checked to find out. Right. But I'm a 90s baby, born and bred. I'm always curious, like, what was the 90s like in other areas of the country, but also other like countries themselves. Like, I'm so curious because Midwest, okay, let me set the picture for Midwest 90s. Like, I'm talking like semi-suburban Des Moines, Iowa, right? Which is, it's not too big of a city. It's fairly peaceful, not crowded. you're out there with your brothers and sisters riding bikes in the neighborhood. You're, celebrating Halloween, going door to door. It's classic, like, Americana, like that scene you get in Hocus Pocus. Y'all remember that Hocus Pocus where they go trick or treating? It's like that without the bullies, without those two, like, the dudes that steal the guy's shoes. It's like that, but without the bullies. Like, it's just a very, like, charming. It felt very safe, even though I don't know how safe it was. But when you're a kid, you think everything's safe, pretty much. And so we would just wander around in the 90s. Like, we just did a lot of wandering. When you're in the 90s, you just walked everywhere. And this is before cell phones. This is before, like, real access to the internet. Like, you just do a lot of wandering, like, just up and down streets, just around your school, through the neighborhood, and it was, like, so much fun. But let me back up to the real, like, what I'm getting to is, I'm always curious, like, was that, like, how it was? Obviously not in, like, big city America. Like, 90s New York seemed like a whole vibe, but it's, like, completely different from the 90s I experienced. And then 90s on the West Coast, like, what was that like? 90s in Florida was probably still trash. Probably just exactly how 90s Florida is now. It's just 30 years ago. Probably still a lot of cocaine. Probably still a lot of people just biting each other. Probably still a lot of alligators. Probably still a lot of meth. So if you got friends in Florida, man, go check on them, because they haven't been alright since, like, the 70s. Probably even before. You know what? Somebody needs to do a deep dive on the history of Florida. Maybe we'll do that one day, but probably not. I don't want my internet search history to be like any Florida. I don't want any, like, Florida ads, because that's just depressing. But I didn't mean to go in on Florida so hard. But if you've ever been, you know what I'm talking about. So I guess I don't really want to know what Florida was like in the 90s. But everywhere else, like, I wonder what, like, Mexico City was like in the 90s. I wonder what, like, Tokyo was like in the 90s. You know what Paris was like in the 90s. What, like, and I don't know, like, the climate of, like, not the temperature climate, but, like, the political climate of all these places. So maybe it was bad or maybe it was good. I don't know. Places like Egypt. What was that like in the 90s? And forgive me if I'm, like, I don't know my, like I said, my political history. So I don't know. Maybe these are just, what was Kenya like in the 90s? What was Australia like in the 90s? That's what I want to, I love seeing pictures of, like, specifically they have, like, the 90s in, like, Tokyo. I've seen a few of those on, like, some of these blogs I follow, but, like, it's always really cool to see the style and to see if it, like, how it compares to, like, what I picture, like, American 90s style. Like, usually you got, like, I picture a lot of grunge, like, oversized t-shirts, big jeans in, like, the early-ish 90s, that kind of fashion, that goth, like that pre-goth, like post The Cure, pre My Chemical Romance, like sandwiched in between there, like the adolescent goth. That's what I kind of picture the 90s for a lot of it. Like, everything smelled like weed. Because it was, like, before Axe body spray, so what else are you gonna smell like? But, and just, like, a lot of young Jared Leto, like, everywhere. That's how I picture the 90s. But, yeah. I love seeing, like, pictures in, like, 90s Tokyo, and, like, it looks like a whole vibe. Like, even just the cityscape, and just, like, whatever their Times Square, I guess, is like I love seeing the technology, how it looked back then, and like there's like Radio Shack ads and stuff. Radio Shack, man. Y'all remember Radio Shack? Radio Shack was like, Radio Shack was like the Blockbuster of electronics, if that makes sense. It always had that same, like, similar vibe. You go into Radio Shack, and it's not like you're going into, I don't know. It almost felt like you're going to rent some supplies, but you're buying them. But I don't know. It had that same energy. R.I.P. R.I.P. Radio Shack. You were a good one, man. Radio Shack. What does that even mean? Is that from the war? Blockbuster. Oh, no, I get that one. Y'all, we're not going to talk too much about Blockbuster because everyone talks about Blockbuster. Like, that's the symbol of the 90s, right? But, man, there are so many good memories of, like, my family and I. Like, I remember sometimes we'd end up, like, we'd live pretty close to a Blockbuster, I think. And we would, like, end up walking and just going to pick up a movie on, like, a Friday night. Like, the whole squad. We ran, like, 4 or 5 deep. And we'd either pick up a movie or a video game. Like, when we pick up a movie, like, it was pretty cool. It was pretty fun. Like, we could never decide on anything, so it usually was end up, like, my dad would pick something. But, boy, when we were going to get a video game, that was a different energy. That was a completely different energy. Y'all remember going to the Blockbuster to get a video game? Man. That was a completely different experience. You were just jazzed the whole time. And this is like maybe, I don't know when the N64 came out, but like it might be late 90s, early 2000s. I don't know. We're gonna oscillate between 90s and early 2000s because it's all jumbled together for me. But boy, when you went to Blockbuster and they were like, "Yo, you can pick out a game." What? We gonna play Mario Kart for a whole week straight. We ain't gonna sleep. We ain't gonna eat. We gonna go to school because we gonna have to. But after we get off school, we gonna play Mario Kart for a week straight. We gonna play some Donkey Kong. Y'all remember Donkey Kong? For the N64? Or back even before that with the Super Nintendo? It was like the Donkey Kong Country. With the most banging soundtrack of all time. Fight me. Most banging soundtrack. That Donkey Kong Country, I listened to it even a few months ago. Still slaps. Like, and I'm 31. I don't even know if I can say still slaps, but it still slaps with that underwater boop, 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 boop. Like I can't even get the synth. What's the synth they used? I don't know. All I know is that soundtrack lives rent free in my head. Whenever I hear like a washed out like synth that just like is wavy. I'm right there underwater with the swordfish and Donkey Kong and Diddy just like swimming. Like, ain't nothing better than putting that soundtrack on. Like, they touched God when they made that one. But yeah, getting a game at Blockbuster that was the whole vibe. That was like the best. That was the best because you knew that weekend was gonna be fire. You knew that whole weekend was gonna be just you and your bros and your sisters just playing games, just playing this new game, wearing it out, unlocking new levels. Excuse me. And like that was like the original Twitch, boy. When you watching your older brother try to beat a game or like beat a level. It's like, oh, now I'm backseat. I got the chips, got the popcorn ready on deck. I'm just gonna watch my older brother try to take out this this toadstool, trying to drive real fast. And he's always Yoshi, and I'm keep telling him, bro, that's a good choice. No, that was a vibe. What else was in the '90s? Y'all remember boy bands? Who was your favorite boy band? I'm talking you can throw Backstreet Boys. Let's go to the big three, right? Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, 98 Degrees. Who you choosing? Me personally, I'm a sucker for that Backstreet Boys. I don't know what happened. Because these days I'm a Justin Timberlake fan, right? But back in the day, maybe it was my mom. I think my mom really loved Backstreet Boys. I don't remember who started. I don't know what came first, but I just remember Backstreet Boys. Just every song they released was jumping. Man. Anybody ever listen to 98 Degrees? Hey, no, puppy. Go the other way. Go the other way. Back up. Boop, 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 boop. Back up. That way. Back up. Oh, no. Go over there. Yep. He's trying to crawl behind where the cords are. Come over here, buddy. But, yeah. You didn't listen to 98 Degrees either? Yeah. It's okay. I don't blame you. They were like the Dollar Tree version of the Backstreet Boys. I think there was even one less, right? They had 4, and all the other ones had 5. It's like you're already playing a man down. Like, what do you expect? It's like when you're playing a pickup basketball game, and it's like you got the injured kid, like the dude who like blew out his knee in like '05, and it's like he's hobbling up, and you're just like, all right, we Nick Lachey it today. I'm usually the hobbled kid. I'm the one with those 30-year-old knees, my guy. But yeah, what about girl bands? There was Spice Girls, I think. I never really got into like outside of like Spice Girls. I never really got into like the girl bands. I love like the solo artists. That was big. What? Britney Spears. Let's see, I was about like 9 or 10 when Britney Spears was like really popping. Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Mandy Moore. Was Lady Gaga back? Nah, Lady Gaga. How old is Lady Gaga? Like her first name is Lady. Like, you gotta be kind of old, I guess. But no, my favorite of those was Mandy Moore. Boy, if you know me, I've done even a cover song of hers. Like Mandy Moore was my favorite. Just something about her voice and like the song Crush. Are you kidding me? Like there's not very many like 90 songs that actually hold up, but Crush and Walk Me Home. Yo. Dang, man. I was jamming out as like a 10-year-old. Like, I mean, maybe those lyrics probably were a little too explicit for me to be listening to, or many more to even be singing them. But in the time, man. Walk me home. You carry me home. What a vibe. Man. Yeah, Mandy Moore was my favorite. Didn't really get into Christina. Gina Nabata was pretty good, but she was just like, you know when something's like a little too advanced for you at the time? It's like I've been operating on like Windows 95 for my whole life, and Christina comes along and she's like Windows 98, and it's like a little too fast. It's like a little too complicated. That was Christina for me. She was the Windows 98 of pop stars, because she was just like, she was doing a lot with her voice, and I was like, it was really, I wasn't young enough to appreciate her talent, right? Or like her skill. I just wanted somebody to like sing one note for like 5-10 minutes, and that was like all I needed in the song. And Christina was doing all those like runs and stuff, and I was like, I don't need all that in my life right now. I'm 10 years old. I can't sing to that. I don't. My vocal cords, like they still in my chest right now. I gotta wait till they like come up a little bit. I don't know much about anatomy, clearly. I swam as a kid. But no, Christina was doing a lot, and I respect her now, but like back then I wasn't vibing with it at all. Britney was like hit or miss for me. She was like, all my friends would listen to Britney, but I was like, I don't know, Mandy Moore just hit that. It just explains a lot about me as a person. Like, I always see what's going on over there, and it's like, let me take this like kind of quieter path. This like kind of the hidden path, right? Because I don't even know how big Mandy Moore got from her singing. I know she got like compared to the other two, like obviously Britney blew up, Christina blew up, but Mandy Moore, like, she kind of stayed in her own lane, right? She ended up going like the acting route. Like, I don't think she got too big like singing wise. Like, I guess she was the 98 Degrees of the pop stars. I don't like that I just said that. Put some respect on her name. Mandy Moore always got a soft spot in my heart. Like we've talked about, man, A Walk to Remember is one of my favorite movies. So, but yeah, Mandy Moore. Who else is? You remember the song "I'm Blue"? Da ba dee da ba da. If I were blue, y'all remember that? What a mess that song was. What an absolute mess. Matter of fact, that's the Florida of songs. Just all over the place. You don't really feel safe. You're kind of like, if I stay along the edge, I'm good. But if you go any more into the center of that song, you're caught up. Pretty sure they're on meth when they made it. So it's like Florida in a nutshell. But it's so catchy. Yo. What about 90s TV shows? Can we talk about TGIF? I think it was either Thank God It's Friday or Thank Goodness It's Friday. One of the two. And it came on, I think, ABC, I want to say. But like that lineup was stacked. Like, I remember when it was like, I think it was maybe Step by Step. Was Full House in it? At some point, Boy Meets World was in it. Family Matters was in it with my boy Steve Urkel. And it was like a rotating, like, I don't know how far back it went, but like that was what was popping when I was in that. And that was just so killer. And eventually, I don't know if Sabrina the Teenage Witch ended up getting in there, but I always just lump it in because it was like the same kind of. Sabrina the Teenage Witch is a whole vibe. Like, if I could, there are only a few shows that I would love to go into that like world that they created. Supernatural is one of them. As long as I know that I would be able to survive at least to like the 30th season. But Sabrina the Teenage Witch is another one. Like, that one just felt so wholesome, but also, I don't know, like Zelda and Hilda, like just chilling, doing shenanigans, and then you got Sabrina, messing around with Harvey and her friends, and what's his face, the principal, or I think it was the principal, just running around town causing all these things, and they'd end up like they'd go to the other realm for a while and deal with all that. Like, I love Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Like, I still watch that like every once in a while. I'll pull it up because nothing else like fits that specific like nerve in terms of like TV shows. It was just a perfect blend of like 90s like romance slash sci-fi. You know, it was like, it was wholesome. Zelda was a baddie. Come on. Was it Zelda or Hilda? No, it was definitely Zelda. I mean, they're both cute, but Zelda was like, I don't know, she had that strong bob, like that strong Robert like cut that was like, woo wee, like dang, she was fine, and she was a little quirky too. She was like that like elementary school science teacher kind of quirky, right? Like she always had something bubbling in the back, like some kind of like potion or concoction, right? She was like the Miss Frizzle. She was giving Miss Frizzle, like that was her situation. And I'm still attracted to that type to this day. Maybe because of Zelda, maybe. But no, then you had like Harvey, who's like the classic. He's the quintessential like '90s jock, like teenage jock, where he's like a good-looking white man with like a good head of hair, and like I think he was the captain of the football team. But he was also like, I like the way they did it, where they at first he was dumb, like at the beginning of the show, he's kind of like really dumb, but they kind of smartened him up a little bit, and you started seeing other sides of him where he's like he. Not always did he want to be like the jock. He wanted to be like, he had some layers. Like, don't sleep on Harvey. Like, he had some layers. Most of them were bad, but he had a few like good layers in between. And then there was that one that brunette, like the villain, like the foil, I guess. Sabrina's like arch nemesis for like the first chunk. I can see her face. I can hear her voice. She had this really like nasally, like just kind of abrasive voice, but I don't remember what her name was in the show. Anybody remember? She was, I don't know, I remember her, like she was really good. She was perfect for what that role called for. But I love Sabrina. And shifting gears, I love Boy Meets World. Boy Meets World was like on in the 90s and early 2000s, and I remember distinctly several times in my life sitting down with my brother on Friday nights and watching them, my older brother James. And I loved Boy Meets World, especially, I think it was really popping when I already say popping today? I think that's the second time I said popping. Well, third, fourth. We're going to roll with it. Boy Meets World, I loved that section when they're just like, maybe their sophomore year of high school into whatever, like their college years. That was like prime time for me, because that was like when I was old enough. Maybe I was like 9 to 12 or 13 or something like that. Well, I was old enough to kind of like understand what's going on. And like that was just, and Corey had a full fro for like the whole, like that's just how his hair is, right? That was my hair. I had the like picture. Okay, before, okay. So I ain't got the hair right now, right? Right. So now I'm rocking the no bob, like the blind Robert, right? But picture the Corey Matthews, where I got, about good 1 to 2 inches of just like Brillo pad right around, just all over. Like the grandmas at the grocery store were so jealous of my curls. Like they were, it was like the same color too. Mine was like ash blonde, so it was like not gray, but like a dark, like a real dark brown, or like a light, like a dark gray, pretty much. And so yeah, grandmas loved me. They were envious of me. I mean, I had that 90-year-old look down pat, boy. Just, My mixed roots were showing. Is that a pun? I don't know. Double entendre. But yeah, Corey had that look that was like relatable to me because I was like, man, I got the same exact hair as him. Like, and he's like the kind of the middle child, the middle brother, and I was the middle brother. And so I like really, really related a lot to Corey Matthews. And plus, Topanga was his girl. Yo, Topanga was probably my mom. Okay, my mom reminded me via Facebook that my OG 90s crush was Tyra Banks. Right. I mean, can you blame me? Have you seen Life Sized? Dime piece, right? Tyra Banks in the 90s was running the world. She was shutting things down, Tyra. Like, she was, man, I had such a crush on her. The stranglehold she had over me in the 90s. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know why I crushed on her. I was like, maybe, it was probably when I was like early 2000s actually. It was probably, I was in my early teens, 11 or 12. I don't know when you start developing crushes, but Tyra Banks was like, but Topanga Lawrence was like, that was like wifey. That was like Tyra Banks was like, oh god, like gorgeous, but like Topanga was like relatable because she was like more like a lot closer to my age and like just, and she had that like hair and she had those lips. I was like, she was like vaguely, I don't know. I could not like, she was like racially ambiguous. So like I couldn't like quite place her. I still can't. I don't know Danielle Fishel's like, I don't know her ethnic background. I don't want to know. But she was like, well, what? I couldn't place her, but she was gorgeous, man. And she was funny in the show, and she was like, I like that she was real smart. Like I love that. Like that's a real, maybe we're getting to the roots of like why I like who I like now, because I love me some smart women. Like just, I go crazy for intelligent women. Like I don't care if you're smarter than me. If you, I would love that, man. Bring my game up to another level. Teach me some things. But Topanga, man, that was those high school days and like the college days for them. Like especially when Eric, like, oh, I'm just reliving. Like I want to rewatch him now. Like I think my brother got him for me one Christmas, and I got him in my living room right now, and I want to rewatch specifically the college years, because something happens to Eric after the graduation where he just turns into this like hilarious character. They did it well with him because the first, when he's in the older brother role for the first, I don't know, 5-6 seasons, and he's like normal. He's like that cool older brother that you look up to, and he filled that role pretty well. But then something happens when like Corey gets to a certain age where there's like no longer the older brother. He's more like the quirky, dumb sidekick kind of, who gets in like situations that are just ridiculous. And he quickly became one of my favorite characters because the shenanigans he gets into, especially when you meet Jack and you get into that kind of situation. Man, I love that. Plays with squirrels. Lose one friend, lose all friends, lose yourself. Man. I'm gonna rewatch him probably after this. Did you guys watch Boy Meets World growing up? Any fans out there? Who is your favorite character? My favorite character, I really liked Angela. I really, really, really liked Angela. She was funny, and she was smart, and she was like, she could keep Sean in his place, right? Because Sean had all these insecurities and stuff, but Angela was like, could hold him down, or like could straighten him out. Um, but yeah, probably my favorite character, I'd have to say Eric. Eric just Eric Matthews in the later years just makes me laugh in a way few characters have ever. Just the way just his dopiness, like his, and he's relatable too. It's just like he's got a good heart, but not a good brain, which is so relatable to me. But yeah, I love Boy Meets World. There are so many times I got really heavy into it, like rewatching it in my high school years, which is past, it was probably mid 2000s, so it's going a little bit past. But I am old enough to remember watching it live when it came on, and those were always such a vibe. One I remember distinctly, it was a cloudy Friday. It looked like it was gonna rain. I was in the old house. We were living in a duplex in Iowa, and I remember sitting in the living room with my older brother, and we were just watching the one where was it the one where their teacher gets in a, I can't remember actually, so I deceived you, but it's one where there's a hospital involved, and I don't think I was old enough or young enough for the one where the motorcycle accident happens. Mr. or Jonathan, I think that's his name. I think it was after that. I think there was another hospital, like when they're older, when they're like in high school or college, that I remember was on, and that's like a core memory for me. But no, man, the '90s, I always like, I always have a special place in my heart for the '90s, like the nostalgia that I feel when I see like those jackets with like just wild purple and like blue colors together, like white, like essentially like a Utah Jazz '90s jacket is peak '90s to me, where it's got like it's like purple, and it's got the mountain range on the back, but it's like '90s purple and like a bright white and like '90s teal and like '90s hot pink for some reason, and like maybe a strip of orange. That's peak '90s for me. That's like John Stockton just like out here just passing the ball like he don't want it, kind of thing, with like the super high shorts. Like, man, but like the nostalgia is real. Like, I know obviously if I went back as me with my full memory to the '90s and experienced life, it wouldn't be how I remember it. It wouldn't be how I want it to be. I'd probably be more thankful of where I am now, because that's just how time is and how memories work. But I'm glad I also have memories of the '90s that are so rose colored that like I get to enjoy them. Like, I don't think a lot about my past much. Usually when I do, it's like based on a feeling, or I don't know, maybe I'll smell something that like a perfume or something that reminds me of then, or like I'll catch this hidden nostalgia, like this little whiff of like 1998 will come across, and then I'll just be transported to like a certain time or a certain memory. And those are always the best, because I like to dwell in them. Like, I like to sit in those as long as possible. I don't know if you guys do that, but whenever like a deja vu moment happens or like a nostalgia moment happens to me, like I'll just sit in that thing for as long as possible. I'll just play it out. I'll just kind of linger in it. Like if that perfume hits and I smell like, 1994. I just strap on my belt and just sit in it. Just letting it take me where it needs to go. My so-called life. Jared Leto again. Those like styrofoam cups that look exactly like a Utah Jazz jacket. Michael Jordan somewhere like dunking a basketball. No, I love deja vu and I love nostalgia. Like, but I don't really think about my childhood much. Like, it's crazy to me that, like, sometimes I'll be talking to my family, or I'll be talking to friends, and they'll bring up things like, oh yeah, when I was 8 I did this, or when I was 11, it's so offhand for them. It's so like casual, like almost like it's at the tip of their brain. But all my childhood stuff is like buried in the back, like, and not for like because of trauma or anything, but just because like I just continue living, and like it's like a treasure you buried, right? And at first you buried it a foot deep, but as time goes, sand keeps piling up on top of it, right? So what was a foot deep is now 3 foot deep, or more accurately, maybe 10 feet deep. So it's like trying to pull back that treasure these days is so tough for me. Like, and I'm curious, is that how everyone is? Like, obviously you're not gonna remember every single detail of like your childhood and the day-to-days and stuff. That's just how life works, right? But can you pull up memories of your childhood like that? Because I can't. Like, I really have to sit in it and think about it. And like, if I think back to like a specific setting, like my old house or my elementary school, things like that, I can kind of pull from, and then like based on that setting, I can pull like a time from that, right? A memory. But if we were just in conversation and you were talking about something and like what you were doing when you were 8 years old, boy, I don't remember what I was doing when I was 18. I don't remember what I was doing when I was 28. I don't remember what I was doing at 8 p.m. Like, I can't pull back memories, and maybe that's the bad thing. I swear I don't smoke too much. I don't drink too much. I've never done hard drugs, right? So I don't know why my memory, I've always just felt like, I don't know, me specifically, I just use it or lose it. Like, I'm much more like forward looking than past looking. So like this will be fun too. Like, you'll be able to see kind of like me pulling files out from different eras of my life, and like you'll be seeing it as I'm doing it. So I'm going to be probably struggling with it because I don't do it often. Like, in my day to day, I never think about my childhood unless it's like specifically brought up as a topic. But like, I don't talk to very many people on the daily, so it's like, unless I'm thinking about it, it's not going to be, unless it's like a subject I'm thinking about in my brain, I'm not really going to touch it, right? And childhood never comes up. Blue moon, in case you missed it. Very, very chilly, nice, crisp blue moon. But, yeah. But every once in a while, I will get a hit of like nostalgia, and I'll think of like what it was like being at the old house, or what it was like walking to school in the mornings, or like what it was like, specific feelings, I guess. I'm much more like a feelings kind of person, if that makes sense. I'm much more like, I don't remember concrete memories, but I remember like feelings. Like, I remember how I felt when the sun was setting and my friends were around and we were playing a pickup football game in the schoolyard. I remember how I felt. I remember how I felt sitting at a Doll's grocery store with my little brother Nick, in the passenger seat, waiting for my mom to finish grocery shopping, and it's nighttime, and there's classic rock on the radio. Like, I remember those feelings, and I guess that's how I tie all my memories, is based on feeling. Like, if I didn't feel anything too much, I'm not gonna. I couldn't tell you. A lot of times, like, I forget all my teachers' names. I forget, a lot of street names. I forget anything like logistical that's not attached to a memory or like a feeling. I don't use it. I don't need it. But I remember the way the sun looked as it went down while Dragon Ball Z was on, when me and my brother got home from school. How it looked in the living room. And then we would fight. Probably 9-year-olds should not probably be watching Dragon Ball Z, because me and my brother got into some fist fights. Like, we thinking we Saiyans out here. We thinking like, we about to Kaioken somebody real quick and just get up to five times our strength. But really, we just 9-year-olds that like had too many Capri Suns, and now our elbows are like in each other's like faces. Yeah. But made us who we are, right? I was always Vegeta. He was always Goku. My little brother was always Gohan. Like, so obviously I win. Obviously. I mean, Vegeta even I had a widow's peak when I had hair. So it was like that, that V looking thing, which is exactly like Vegeta's. So maybe that's what it was, or maybe I was just a villain of the family. Maybe. But I mean, but yeah, we get into some fights. Like, usually they would always start out play fighting, right? That's how 90% of fights start, right? It's like you're play fighting. Kamehameha, right? Fusion, ha! But you sneak in a punch instead of like a finger thing. So you're like, oh wait, hold up, and then it get real. You always go like one too many punches, one too many fake like Kamehamehas, and then it's like, whoa, you hit me in that right spot. Now we wrestling. Like, now we actually doing it, right? And I could never get to Super Saiyan 2. Ever. And my brother was 2 years older than me, so it's like, what am I going to do with that? He got me by like at least 10 pounds. 90% of it was in his hair. So it's like, what am I going to do with that, right? We know based on Dragon Ball Z, like, all your hair, like all your power is in your hair. So it's like, he got all of that. I got a buzz cut. I'm already at a disadvantage. Already. I guess I'm the 98 degrees of that situation. I don't like that. Don't like that. With all due respect, Nick Lachey, I'm not trying to be like you. But that gets into like, I guess we're getting, this works too, because we're getting to like early 2000s, right? With like Toonami, when that was like peaking. But we'll get into that. We're going to get into like a Toonami / anime / the origin story of my like love for anime. We're going to get to do that another day, because that is a whole other topic that I'm excited to share. Because we're getting into like Tenchi Muyo, pretty much the Toonami 4 o'clock lineup, 3 o'clock lineup, Dragon Ball Z, Tenchi, Gundam Wing, Hamtaro for some reason. They threw Hamtaro in there like we're going to notice, like we weren't going to notice. Like, you just sandwich like 2 like violent TV shows. In between that, you put Hamtaro. Just like 6 little gerbils. I'm sorry, hamsters. They don't like when I call them gerbils. Hamsters just like running around, causing mischief, like collecting things. And I'd be curious to know how well that holds up today. Like Hamtaro, I am very curious what he's doing up now these days. But yeah, we'll get into the origin stories of that. I hope I'm not slurring my words too much. I mean, like I said, I am a lightweight. Real talk. Like I said, I don't drink too often. So these days, I kid you not, one beer and I'm done. Like it's it. Like I'm not like, obviously I'm not like belligerent but like one beer and I'm feeling like pretty well buzzed and I'm like, all right. And when I get buzzed, I get sleepy. And when I get sleepy, I get hungry. When I get hungry, I eat. And then I get sleepy again. So, we got about 20 more minutes, maybe a half hour before I start getting sleepy. But, so yeah, the 90s, like I said, the 90s, when I think back on the mood of it, I don't know. I am so big on like moods and like vibes. And I don't know if you guys are sensitive like that or sensitive to those things like I am, but like there are so many different moods that I've tried to recreate from that time in my life that I just can't or never will. And I guess that's the beautiful thing, but it's like I wish I could like bottle up certain moods and time periods of the 90s and bring them back and like experience them again. Like sometimes I'll dream and I'll have those and it'll feel like real close or like spot on, but other than that, it's just my memory and like whatever is faded, like a 30-year faded memory of a mood. But I am very big on like the atmosphere and like everything about a situation. And in the 90s, boy, it had a lot for me. Like there's a living room light, a specific kind of, dark blue light. Sun's going down, it's summertime. The curtains are still open, but the street lights are coming on, and the blue light is like starting to cover everything, right? And it's getting dark. There's a specific mood that I can feel it, I can picture it, I can almost touch it when I think about it, like that I felt at the old house in like maybe 1999, 1998, something like that. It's real weird. It's like that's where my memory is like that's strongest, is when it, like I said, when it's tied to a mood or like a memory or a feeling, like a vibe. Like it's always been that way for me, where I'm just so attached to different vibes in my life. It's like such a strong motivation for me for anything. Like if the vibes are off, I pretty much started that phrase like since birth. If the vibes were off, I'm out. Like, why do you think I was premature? I came out early. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But yeah, if the vibes are out, or if the vibes are off, I'm out. I'm out this thing. Like, and if the vibes aren't like where I'm wanting them to be, I'm gonna change things or situate things to where it's like peak, like ideal. Like an example for that, not really 90s related, but like so like early, like mid morning, like 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on like beautiful spring days, we'll have this particular like blue sky, right? Especially like Saturday mornings in the springtime, the world's warming up, it's blue skies, it's still like cool breeze out, green trees like blowing in the wind everywhere, like that specific Saturday morning cool day is my favorite to listen to Ben Howard. Um, he's got an album. I can't remember if it's called Every Kingdom. I can't remember what the album title is, but it's just like one of my favorite albums of all time. My most listened to. But he is perfect for these spring morning sunlight vibes. And like if it's so strong for me, like I did it the other day, and I sent like a snap to my friend Mari, because like I know she likes Ben Howard too, and it's just kind of fun to share these like vibes, but there's just something about it that just fits perfectly for me. Like it just snaps into place like this. Just it makes the entire morning exactly the vibe I want it to be. And so I did it the other day, and it was perfect. It almost never fails. Like it's something in my brain that like switches, and it's like, okay, this is happening. All these events are lining up. The blue sky, the wind, the cool breeze, the sunlight, the way it's hitting through the light or the curtains. You know, I got my coffee. I just like a little chilly, but like I'm cozy, right? And that something just boom, 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 boom. You gotta play some Ben Howard. It's Ben Howard time. And I cut it on, boy, and it's perfect. It's exactly what I needed. Exactly what I wanted to fit to fill in the rest of that mood, right? And I'm actually like this about a lot of things. Like, yeah, I do that quite often. And I don't know what it is. I really don't. It's been since I was, I don't know, probably since I was a kid, but like I've only realized it like since I was like maybe 16 or 17, where I was really set on setting moods to like make me feel the happiest. So yeah, fun fact about me. Oops, sorry, did not mean to boop that. But back to the 90s. I remember I remember Seinfeld was always playing somewhere in the house. And I did not like Seinfeld growing up because it meant that whatever show I was actually interested in was over. And I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was The Simpsons or like Friends. I don't remember what would be on at the time, but I remember when Seinfeld came on, it was like too highbrow for me at the time. Like I don't care about, 30-something-year-old people. I'm 6, which is kind of funny because Seinfeld's actually one of my favorite shows now. It's one that like I'm glad I went through, and like because I always growing up had that like idea of it. It's like, when you're young, like things mold you and they shape you, and you have this like lasting impression of things. And for years, all through high school, my view of Seinfeld was just this like kind of gross, like he's always like, well, Jerry, like he's always yelling, and George, I don't know what he's doing, and it just never made sense to me. I never got it because I was just too young when it was like popular, and then I just always thought it was just like some dry thing that like, oh, well, now the Bulls game's off, like now I gotta watch Seinfeld, right? But now, long story short, George Costanza is my spirit animal. Like he is me in a nutshell. Like we got the same hairline, we got this like the same like self-deprecating humor. Like we has that meme where it's like, everybody be quiet, I'm shifting into soup mode. Like that is a phrase I would say if he had already created that, I would create that. Cause soup mode is a real thing, man. You got to get in that mindset for soup. But yeah, Seinfeld was always on in the 90s. I feel like it was a constant somewhere on some channel. Seinfeld was playing. I remember The Simpsons was really fun to watch back in like the 90s. The Simpsons, like I feel like that was the heyday, like before the animation got all weird, and I'm sure it's still just as funny or edgy or whatever, but I just never kept up with it. But like 90s Seinfeld, when they had like Bleeding Gums Murphy and like the jazz arc, and like the animation was still 90s, was like some of the best television on TV, I think, in my opinion. Like Sideshow Bob, like that arc where he's like, I can't remember if he's trying to kidnap Bart or something, but I loved it. And then King of the Hill was another one that was like Seinfeld for me. Whenever King of the Hill came on, it meant Seinfeld or Simpsons were over. So I was just like associated with like sadness. But like I went back, like I remember in college, my roommates, I can't remember if it was Connor who was really into King of the Hill or Maina, but like I'd come home from class and they'd have it on, and it is actually hilarious. Like one of the funniest shows ever created, I think. Like that one is so understated, but it is so funny once you get like engrossed in the characters and the storylines. Like that's one I want to watch like from start to finish and like get it all, because I just didn't understand it when I was younger, but when I was like 19, I was watching it and I was like, Bobby Hill, what are you doing, my guy? What are you doing? He has some of the best one-liners, and like his character development, like his just is hilarious. And then Peggy's hilarious, and Hank is that dry, like he has some of the driest humor that just hits. Like I wouldn't be mad at I don't know if they've done a live action of that one, but I wouldn't be mad at that. But yeah, those are like the main. Like I remember my brothers and we got into like, so in the 90s, I keep saying brothers, I guess I should back up. So I've got 3 older brothers and a younger brother and 2 younger sisters, right? But in the 90s, it was mainly like my brothers, so my 3 older brothers and then my younger brother, because like my sisters were like they were the youngest of the bunch, so you know, in a good chunk of the 90s they were either toddlers or, you know, my youngest sister was like an infant until 2000 pretty much. I still see her as like 5 years old in a good way. But so for the most part, like a lot of my memories are with my brothers. And we got really into Power Rangers. Like that was our thing. I remember we dressed up as Power Rangers for Halloween one year. Yeah, I was always like the secondary character, right? Because my older brother James was obviously player 1, right? And I'm player 2 with like the similar abilities, but like a definitely different color scheme. Right. So I don't get like the main story arc, but I get like the close secondary, like the Vegeta. Like he's Goku. That's all you need to know. He's Goku. I'm Vegeta. I get the secondary storyline. Like that's kind of like definitely different. Not quite as good. Like the writing wasn't quite as good, but you know, he's got that first brother syndrome where he got the good budget. But so yeah, he was always, I can't remember if he was the White Ranger or the Red Ranger, and I was always whatever was like the next one up. Like I can't remember, the Black Ranger or the Yellow Ranger. I don't remember, but yeah, Power Rangers was big. That was probably, like I said, like just right here, trying to think of things from my childhood is so difficult for me. Like I don't have it on the tip of my tongue. I don't even have it like in some secret location where I can just pull from time to time. It's like I've got to dig and dig and dig to get to anything useful. Like it's just a lot of like Sheryl Crow lyrics or like Jewel. Y'all remember Jewel, the singer? I did not understand her growing up. And not just because her Canadian accent, or her lisp, but I didn't know what that was about. Like, she was like the Leanne Rimes of the pop scene, and I was just like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what's happening right now. I really did not. I still don't. She probably made some really good songs. I just was not about it. But you guys having fun? Is everything still good? Hopefully this sounds good and y'all having fun talking about the 90s. Listen about the 90s. But yeah, that is my favorite. It's like I said, it's so colored in like nostalgia. So I don't know how good the times actually were, but for me, like growing up in the 90s, untouchable. Like perfection. Remind me, we're gonna do a whole episode / stream on moods and vibes, because I've got so many that like have just come to mind that we could be talking about this for the next 2 hours. But I want to just specifically focus on the 90s today. But don't let me forget, I definitely want to do that because there's so many. It's just that is like me in a nutshell. Like, if you need to understand anything about me, it's that. Like, that's like the core of me. But I guess we'll peel back a few more layers before we get to the inside, right? But I remember the 90s. I remember my dad would be watching basketball a lot. And I don't even know if he loved basketball like that. I know he loved playing, but I just like talked to him recently, and he said like, you know, he enjoyed it, but like for some reason in my head I thought it was like his favorite thing ever. Because he would just, I guess he would get home from work and it would be on. But I remember watching a lot of Chicago Bulls games. Because it's like, we lived in Iowa, right? So it's like, Iowa doesn't have a professional basketball team. So you're either latching onto the Minnesota team, the Timberwolves. You're latching onto the Illinois team, which is Chicago, the Bulls. And I don't know if, does Kansas have a team? Kansas City, no, that's football. I don't know. All I know is for basketball, Chicago Bulls was like king in not only Iowa but like everywhere because Michael Jordan, right? So I never saw. I can't even remember seeing a game that didn't involve the Bulls in the 90s. But I am so glad that like I have those memories of like watching with my dad and my brothers, like, and I was too young to really understand what was going on or what I was seeing, but like I remember distinctly like this like TV, like these 90s TV that had like a VCR attachment to it. I think it was just like the Chicago Bulls playing, and it'd be like the best graphics of all time, like those 90s like sports graphics were the best. Like, in my opinion, if I could recreate that today, I don't need these fancy like modern looking like numbers and score, like anything like that. Give me those 90s like tabs and those 90s like graphics. That was peak. That was the peak of anything we did technology wise, I think. And then the intro was like, like, you remember, you know, like NBA on NBC or whatever it was. Man. And then Nelly, I think, like sampled that in one of his songs, like in like the 2000s, and I hated it. Like, to me, it was garbage. It was probably a decent song, but like, that's all I'll ever picture is like 90s basketball with that song. And yeah, I remember watching, like I said, I couldn't remember too much of Michael Jordan, like what was actually happening, but I remember like seeing it as a whole and really enjoying it. And then every time it would go off, Seinfeld would come on. And I'm like, oh, god dang. Here we go. some fat bald man talking about soup, which is me now. Like, that's my life. I talk about soup all the time. But no, the 90s. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say best era ever. What's better? The 80s? Nah. I promised myself I wouldn't dump on the 80s too hard today, but if you gonna come at me and say that the 80s was better than the 90s, to borrow a phrase, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. 80s aren't even coming close to the 90s. 80s, y'all had some good runs, right? Y'all had Hall & Oates, which is top tier. Y'all had The Cure, top tier. The Smiths, pretty good. Y'all had Whitney, top tier. Y'all had, was Joy Division in the 80s? Doesn't matter. I didn't even like them. I think they're overrated. And that's it. That's all I'm giving you for the 80s. And I guess you had Miami Vice, which is a pretty cool vibe as far as TV shows go. But like, that's it. Don't come at me saying Knight Rider. Knight Rider was garbage. Is that the 80s? Maybe I'm talking 90s. Maybe I'm bashing the 90s. I don't know. Let me not get too specific. But 90s, boy, we had everything from, we had that Nirvana, we had Sheryl Crow, we had we had 90s action flicks. So like we had, I don't know if that was when Arnold was peaking. A lot of this actually is blurring with the 80s, so disregard that. But like we had 90s action with like Jean-Claude Van Damme and Arnold, and that other guy that always reminded me of Jean-Claude Van Damme, but it's not him. I think my brother would know. My older brother, he would know exactly what I'm talking about because he's the one that like watches those. We had Jackie Chan, bro. We had Jackie Chan heavy in the 90s. Like 80s was, I know he was active, but like 90s when he was popping. Like I think was Rush Hour in the 90s, like late 90s. That in itself, having Rush Hour. Let me double check before I lie to y'all. Let me double check, make sure that I'm not lying to you, because I think Rush Hour was like 98, maybe 97. Because I do not want to deceive you. Rush Hour was made in 1998, boy. Put it in the column. That's a W. Having Rush Hour exist in or be like created and released in your decade is an automatic game over. Game over. Rush Hour is in a league of its own in terms of buddy cop comedies. A league of its own. Nobody's touching that these days. Also, you would get canceled immediately if you made that today. Immediately. Like, it's so filled with like overt racism. Like, it could not be made today. And I don't think it should be made today. But back then, if you watch it, like, it is top tier. It is so funny. It's a lot of my life is like based around Rush Hour quotes. Like, I just watched it when my brothers came to town a few months ago, and it holds up beautifully. Like, okay. Before I get canceled, I don't agree with a lot of stereotypes they have going on then. But like, as a snapshot to what our culture was like at that time period, it holds up. You know. But yeah. And I think we had Jurassic Park too. Jurassic Park was, and the Titanic, bro. Jurassic Park, Rush Hour, Titanic. 3 of the best movies ever made. Need I say more? What was the 80s giving us? That movie with David Bowie that made me feel weird? The Goonies, which I've never seen in my life, ever. So, probably not that great. If it hasn't made me want to watch it now, not that great. I was actually supposed to watch that movie with R. I don't know if I've talked about. No, not R. My bad. With A. I don't know if I've talked about A yet. We'll talk about her because we'll do that later because, well, it's complicated because we're still really good friends. So I don't want to put her business out there, like, you know. I'll do it to an extent, but like, we're still friends, so I don't want to step over any lines, I guess. But I was supposed to watch that with A, but we just never did. So the Goonies, man, nah. Back to the Future, nah. Let's go to Back to a Future where that doesn't exist. Am I right? Just kidding. I think y'all had Groundhog Day. In the 80s, y'all had Groundhog Day. And that's it. That's absolute it. But 90s, we gave you True Lies. We gave you Baywatch. We gave you so many good flicks. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Y'all remember that? Air Bud, when he's choosing between the like really like angry clown or the kid, and you're just wanting him to go and be a point guard with that kid. And that's another good one that has a perfect like fall vibe to it. I remember one of the opening scenes is like lots of autumn leaves, and I could be wrong. Maybe this is how I remember it because I haven't seen Air Bud since it came out, because there's no point in seeing it after it's come out. But like, who's watching Air Bud these days? Like, I would get it. Like, if I had a kid, I would probably have them watch Air Bud just to have it, just so they can have the experience of it. But like, yo, give me a mediocre 8-year-old, and that kid's gonna shut down Air Bud. Like, all you gotta do literally is just keep some goldfish in your pocket, and you shut down effectively Air Bud. Like, he's not gonna make any jumpers like that. I don't care too much about realism, but like, in my head, I'm like, yo, just drop a few goldfish on the 3-point line. That dog's gonna be so busy, you just scoop and score. It's like the old Golden State Warrior like trick, right? I swear I've seen Steph Curry do it a million times. Just drop a few goldfish. Your opponent's too busy eating it up, you know? And like, doesn't that hurt the dog's nose when it like boops it into the basket? And like, was it a regulation size basket? All these questions run through my head. I'm like, how do you get a jersey on a dog? Do you have 4 holes? Do you just do the one and kind of... Did he get to pick his own number? See? It's just an endless loop. Just more questions than answers, I think. But, I mean, maybe I just need to watch it again as an adult. But then I don't want to do that. But I'll always remember that scene where the dog is going and he chooses, no spoilers, but this movie's been out for like 25 years. So the dog ends up choosing the kid, and it's a celebration, right? And the clown's like freaking out. But like, also, this dude is in public in a clown get up, like trying to steal a dog from a kid. And I think actually the clown did own the dog, but like he was abusive to the dog or neglected the dog. And so like, you're rooting for the kid anyway. It's like a better home. It's a stable home. But also, what if we just misread Air Bud entirely? What if like the clown was like a really good owner and like taught the dog how to shoot these baskets? Like that was part of the trick. Like part of it, he would take the dog around to like different parties, and like half it he'd be the clown, and the other half he would do a party trick with his dog, where the dog booped it. And every day he would feed the dog and read to the dog and pet the dog and give the dog so much love. And we just caught him on a bad day, or like obviously this clown's gonna be upset. You stole his dog. Like all we see is an angry clown with a bad temper. I know the dog reacts weird to him, so I guess that's a big tell. But like, this little kid just stole his dog. If someone stole my dog, I'd be angry too. Especially that dog I just spent 6 years trying to train how to shoot baskets. Now we've been let's yeah. I could talk about airball all day, but yeah. And I loved one of my favorite things. I think we'll probably do a few more, maybe another 20 minutes or so, and then call it a night. But I'm just like unlocking these different memories in my brain, which is fun because I haven't traveled these pathways in years, man. I haven't thought about Air Bud in probably. I'm 31, so probably 31 years. But I loved like the Halloween vibes in the 90s. That is something you cannot recreate. Like nowadays, maybe it's because I'm older and I the magic of being a kid is gone, and maybe it's just as nice for the kids now like than it was in the 90s. But boy, something about the 90s was like purely analog. Like when I think about the 90s, I think analog, like no digital. Like I said, it was before really cell phones took off or internet really took off. It was like you were still using the phone on the wall with the cord. And a lot of you may not even know what I'm talking about with that, but like a lot of phones used to have a cord that plugged into some part of your wall, right? At some area in your wall would have a little hole, and you would put that into the cord in, and you could talk to people anywhere, right? So it's like the 90s was just analog, and the TVs were all like either they're boxy or like they were round, like they had like the round face on them. And so that was like what the 90s was to me, was just that kind of experience. But then Halloween was like another level, because like Halloween in the Midwest, like by mid-October, it's starting to get chilly, right? And you might have already had snow, but the trees are like changing, like already golden brown, so by Halloween time, it's chilly. You can see your breath whenever you walk out. It's getting dark pretty early. The trees are beautiful. And nothing tops 90s Halloween or like trick or treat. Like, do you have trick or treats where you're from? Like a beggars night, I guess. So I didn't realize until I was pretty old that like some places have a beggars night and some places don't. Like a beggars night is essentially like, I don't know the origin story, but like essentially you set aside one day, usually the day before Halloween, where it's like that's the designated, okay, kids can go out safely on the streets and get candy from their neighbors, and everyone's on the lookout pretty much. Everyone's like, okay, it's beggars night, I gotta drive slowly, I gotta drive carefully, watch out, like little goblins and ghouls are gonna be like running up into my space, I gotta be careful. And then some places don't have a beggars night, they just do it all on Halloween, which, if anyone knows why beggars night's a thing, let me know. But it's like, why wouldn't you just do it on Halloween for everyone? But anyways, like beggars night, we had beggars night in where I grew up, and so it was always a blast. Like your parents or whoever you were with, like would help you like get dressed up, because I was like maybe 5 or 6 or 7. They would get you in your costume and paint your face, and It'd always be that uncomfortable, like that Halloween makeup is like the most uncomfortable makeup in the world. Like I don't put on makeup, but like I imagine that like what people put on, like concealer and all that stuff, is like higher quality or like better feeling, because that Halloween makeup felt terrible. It felt just so restricting and like just hot and cold at the same time. Oddly, like you just felt like almost out of your body because it's like pressing against. It was just weird, the sensation that Halloween makeup would give to you. Like I know like immediately, like as soon as it went on, like I remember dreading getting like the makeup on me, because I did not like that sensation of the makeup on my skin. Like it just did not feel comfortable. Like after a while you get used to it and you forget about it, especially when you're a kid, but I remember dreading it. But yeah, you're getting ready, and maybe you've watched a few spooky movies like Hocus Pocus, like to get ready for the thing. And back then it was probably not safe to go, and like any safer to go out like as a kid, because like the more I'm learning, America's dangerous. Like, what are we doing? Like, like the way I like to think about it sometimes is like, imagine you're like a 5-year-old kid, right? And you get like separated from your parents, and you walk down the street for help. America does not feel that safe to be doing that. And that's crazy to me that like, I don't know, that's a whole other issue we'll get into. But so I don't know if the 90s was any safer, because I'm learning that like, oh wait, like the 90s still had like some pretty weird serial killers and like pretty weird stuff going on, like people getting snatched up, right? Like them white vans back in the day were like, they were getting gassed up pretty frequently, like sketchy stuff, right? But anyways, in the Midwest, in like smaller-ish town Midwest, like we didn't really think about that as kids. I'm sure our parents worried, but like as kids, you just like whatever, more candy, right? So you just go out with. For me, since I came from a big family, it was like my brothers and my sisters when they were born, like eventually, but we would just wander around the neighborhood, and my parents would drive us, and we'd just kind of go get candy and fill our bags with our pumpkins or whatever we had with like neighborhood candy, and just pig out and just try to eat as much as we could. Because I remember our parents like would park like at the end of the block, and they would just like wait for us to get along. So the pro tip, the real hack was, so what they would do is like kind of keep an eye on us, make sure we're not like overeating or like gorging our food, like making us sick, right? The good parents, like but the hack was like to start wherever your first house on the block was, you would pretty much just eat a piece of candy at every stop. So you're eating as you're going, so you're getting pretty much par. You're getting par every time, because you're eating a candy while you're filling up candy, right? So you're just going along. So by the time you get to the car, I mean you're like 8 candies deep, man. Your belly is rumbling with like some M&Ms and some Twizzlers and some like Skittles and some dots for some reason. Like you know what a waste of space dots are? Like, do you enjoy dots? Like, be honest. Be honest with your most honest self. Do you enjoy dots? That's a no, right? I could hear it. That's a no. No. Dots are like, what, first of all, what even are dots? Like, they're just little, they're not even dots, really. They look like bullets. Like, dots would be more like flat and circular, right? Like, dots look like bullets. But like, instead of metal, it's just shooting you with subpar jelly garbage. It's just like, and the flavors aren't good. It's like, it's supposed to be cherry, but it tastes more like, it's like cherry adjacent, right? It's like, I can see what you're going for, but like, it ain't it, my guy. It ain't it. It's like you're chewing it for like oddly it's like a too short amount of time. Like it doesn't hold up enough in your mouth, but like it's solid. So it's like, riddle me that. Like, how do you're chewing it, and like, you're expecting 10 chews, but you're getting like 4.5 chews out of it, and you're like, that doesn't make sense consistency wise, just like chemistry wise. What's going on? But anyways, you're like, the dots. The good thing about dots is it came in a package, so it's like you got a little box of dots, so you're getting like quantity over quality, right? As a kid, you're like, oh, 5 big dots in my belly is like, that's golden. You're not really caring about what they taste like. I mean, we ate Smarties as a kid. Y'all remember Smarties? Like, and don't pretend like you never ever crushed up them Smarties, and like, do that Florida style, that hard, like that Smartie line right there. Just getting like 50 cc's of sugar straight to the brain. I mean, they look literally like pills. Like, that was the marketing. That was the exact marketing, I think. Little packages of sweet pills. It was the Oxy before Oxy. But it's like the anti-oxymoron, right? Because they were Smarties. That's the blue moon talking. But actually, Smarties were better than Dots. If we're ranking them, Smarties were way better than Dots. Like, if you got that, there was always those. The Smarties had different consistencies, like textures. They were like I can't remember if there's the blue Smarties and like I can't remember, like the pale yellow Smarties that like were crunchier. But then there was always that like maybe that red Smartie, that like light red Smartie that like chewed good. You know what I mean? It like, when you chewed it, it just like broke apart perfectly, like just the right amount of give to it, just like. And I live for those Smarties. I can't remember which one it was, or if it was like just a specific, I don't know if it was color based or just like specific ones in the pack just had that chemistry to them, but like you just broke them apart just right. Man, those were good. Y'all remember Fun Dip? Yo, we getting into some real issues now, right? We get into the real thick of things. We get into the candies. But Fun Dip was essentially, if you ground up all the Smarties and put them in a package, like you crunched them all up into a fine powder, sifted them out into a package, and then literally used a 2-inch long thing of pure sugar to dip in and lick off. Like, how crazy is that? That we literally dipped sugar into sugar and ate it. Like, what in the world? If you think about it just like that, that's insane. They're like, A, they made it, but B, marketed it to kids. Like, it's essentially diabetes in a package. Like, but I was a sucker for it. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, one thing I'm going to be is straight up honest with y'all. And that double sugar intake was just amazing. Sometimes I would just like, what I would do is, that sugar stick, that good old, I don't even know what it was. It was like almost, I don't know, vanilla. It was just like a hard, like, elongated pill looking thing of sugar, right? Sometimes I would just like leave that where it was right there, right? And I would just have the package of Fun Dip, the little actual like crushed up Smarties pretty much, and I would just lick my finger, dip it in there, lick it like that, and just do that, or just like literally dump it like straight up like that, right? Just straight to the brain. And then I would take that sugar stick and just put it in my mouth and just suck on it and just like let it, like the stick itself had this very specific taste. Like I've never tasted it since. It is this very specific mix of vanilla and sugar and sadness that like you put it all in, and it's just like, it's delicious. So like when I was feeling spicy, like I would, obviously the main was like using that stick with its like for its purpose, right? And just dip it into the various assortment of colors and powders, and just getting like that. And the mix of the flavor of the stick and the powder was like heaven. Like it was delicious. But like I said, sometimes by the end of that, your stick was like real little, and it was like you didn't even get to enjoy like this on its own. So I would do it the other way, where I just do the powder first, just straight up, just, that's probably about 200 cc's of straight brain sugar. Is that what booger sugar is? Fun Dip? I don't know, but I had and so I would have a full stick, right? And just marinate on that thing for a minute. I loved it. Man, Fun Dip was that was one of my favorites. But anyways, so the move is, even when you got dots like rumbling around in your belly, you eat the candy as you're going back to the car, like each one. So by the time you get to your car, your parents think, oh, you're only eating what I'm seeing you eat right here. But reality, you got 8 different candies situated in your gut, right? And so obviously by the end of the night, we had a tummy ache, right? Because I don't care if you got the fastest metabolism as a kid, you gonna get a tummy ache when you eat that much sugar. It's just science. So I remember we'd get back and we'd all be like sugar combed out, like we'd be excited about our haul, and we'd like see it all, and then our parents would check it probably, and then we'd end up crashing, just going to sleep like real quick. And I'm sure if my parents are watching right now, man, I'm sure y'all snuck a few candies out of them pumpkins, right? You were checking them. Checking to see if those Reese's still taste good. I mean, at that age, I wasn't good at math, so I couldn't count all my candies. But like, if I could, I'm sure I'd be about 4 or 5 short, right? I'm looking at you, Dad, because like, I know you got a sweet tooth. I know it. That's where I got it from. Both my mom and dad love them some sweets. But like, I know my dad. I could see him like digging in there, getting one of my M&M's like little packages. He'd be smart about it though. He wouldn't get like the king size ones that I knew, but like he'd get maybe the little fun size ones, or like a crackle. Cause I'm not gonna miss a crackle, but like, I'm gonna eat it when I have it. I love a good crackle, but like, if I'm missing it, I'm not gonna notice it, kind of thing. Mr. Goodbar, I'm gonna miss. I'm gonna notice. But he's clever. So y'all just checking our candies, right? Because me as an adult, like I'll get into this later, but like essentially I helped raise, I guess, or like I was a woman that I dated who I got really close to marrying, had a kid, right? And so I was around for like the age 2 to 5, like toddler years, right? So I was on plenty of a Halloween excursion as an adult, like taking him. And I definitely might have put my hand in and got a few Skittles, right? So, I mean, we've all been there. I'm a man enough to admit it. Like, yeah, I took a fun-sized Skittles package from a 3-year-old. Sure did. Now, I'm just saying, my parents had, 4 or 5 kids at that time? Do the math. That's 5 fun-sized Skittles package. That's a lot of Skittles. That's almost a full-size pack. So hats off, man. I get why you had so many kids. I get it. But Halloween in the 90s was an absolute mood. I mean, just the ambiance, and it feels like, I don't know these days, but it feels like a lot more people were in on it. Like a lot more people were like cool to celebrate Halloween. Like these days, I don't know. It just uh, when I'm out and about and like I see who's got their lights on for Halloween, it's like, it doesn't seem quite as much as I remember, right? And I know I could be a kid, and I know that nothing really ever changes. So maybe it's just as it always has been. But I just, was looking at it through a child's eyes, I guess. But I don't know. But I mean, I keep my light off now because I don't need that kind of energy in my life. Like a little, like, 2 foot tall ghost coming up to me. Like, don't need that. A, that's terrifying. B, what if you sneak past me and I don't see you, and now I just got a 5-year-old ghost like haunting my house, right? It's like, that's terrifying, because that ghost don't know what to do. He's just here now, right? He hasn't gone to elementary school. He doesn't know social dynamics. He doesn't know the basics. Like, I can't have that around. I don't know. I mean, I'd be a good dad, but like a ghost dad? I don't know. Anyways, how are you guys doing? Are you having fun listening to just banter about the good old days? How many of you out there are 90s babies? I'm curious. Anybody out there 80s babies or 2000s babies? Or we got any 70? We can go way back, man. We can go 1910s. We got some 1910s babies out there. So them jazz age babies. Them Model T babies. Them the Titanic still got hope babies. And them 1911 babies right there. Them 1911s. When everyone has hope. But yeah, y'all having fun. This has been cool. I like this. I mean, I probably won't do too many drinking on streams just because, like I said, I don't drink much, and if anything, I'm not gonna do anything I don't do. I'm gonna keep it 100. I'm gonna do what I do. But this has been fun. You've probably seen a little bit of a more zestier side of me, I guess. A little more comedy based, a little more humor based today versus like the more serious stuff I get into. But it's a good balance, man. I'll do some of these. I'll do some of the hard hitting ones. Although we did get into some hard hitting stuff. We got into dots today. Any candy that like you put inside of a cardboard box, like a small cardboard box, should be good. But historically, they're all garbage. Dots, trash. Nerds, super trash. Like, nerds are disgusting. They give nerds a bad name. Like, I'm a nerd, but those things are just raucously disgusting. Who out here liking nerds? And then I think the worst idea for a candy ever made was Nerds Rope. And I don't mean to offend, but Nerds Rope was literally like a disgustingly gummy, like, knockoff Twizzler encased in in like hundreds of little tiny beads of mistake. So you're like biting into a crunchy. If you've ever seen a Nerds Rope, you know exactly how I'm trying to describe this, right? Like, picture this right now. Picture biting into a Nerds Rope. So like you're taking a bite and you've got like probably 20 nerds on the interior of your mouth, right? Before you've even taken a bite. And so you're taking a bite and you're chewing through some of the nerds and you're chewing through the soft center of whatever they put inside of that. Could be anything. And so now you're just left with this mixture in your mouth. And you're chewing it. And it's like you don't chew with the full... Like if you just dump a box of nerds in your mouth, right? You know what you're getting, right? You know you got to be safe about... You know how to chew, right? Like we're talking situational chewing, you know? Like if you're chewing... If you take a bite of mac and cheese, you're going to chew differently than if you dump a box of nerds in your mouth and you chew, right? And with the nerds, you're going to be a little cautious. You're going to make sure none of them, like, you know, kind of get away from you. You just, you know what's up. But the nerds rope, that's like the basis of why this is disgusting, is like it defies all of that. It like confuses your chewing apparatus. So it's like you don't know how to chew this correctly or safely even. So it's like you're chewing like you've got Twizzlers in your mouth, but you got nerds rolling around too. Like it's just not a good situation. Like, yeah, like situationally, that's like it's an awful setup. Awful setup. If you like nerds rope, you a special. Like you a rare one. Right? I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but you rare. I've never seen anybody like purchase a Nerds rope. Ever. I don't know. Do they still sell them? Even back in their heyday, I never saw any kid or any adult or any living thing who could exchange money for goods buy a Nerds rope. It was just... Somehow it just ended up in your house or ended up in your Halloween bowl or ended up somewhere, just like it got placed there, right? It's like floss. It's like a package of floss. Nobody ever goes and buys floss. Have you ever deliberately went to the store and picked up a little one of those? You know what I'm talking about? Those either white little circles of floss or like a square little blue thing of floss. Nobody has ever bought those. You either get them from the dentist or they're just in your house when you move in and you think it's yours and you use it, right? That's what Nerds rope is. It's like you never intentionally go out and buy Nerds rope. Never. If you are, you might be a little crazy. I mean, it's just... Who wants those textures in your mouth at the same time? Like whose bright idea was it to like, okay, let me make this trash candy even worse. Nerds rope. Let's make this trash candy worse. Hit rock bottom. Now lower. Dang. I could make the slogan for that. It would definitely be lower than rock bottom. Nerds rope. Climb down to rock bottom. No, it's alright. But I don't know. What good times, man. Good times. And there's something, I don't know. There's something to be said about like mutual experiences. Like I've realized a lot as I'm getting older and I'm like dating different age groups. You know, I'm dating, women in like the mid 20s. I'm dating like women, older than me, like, upper 30s kind of situation. Even mid 40s. Like, there's something to be said about like shared decades, I guess, like growing up in the same kind of time period. And like, I don't know, that the connection you have with a fellow 90s baby is real. or like a fellow 80s baby or whoever, there's just that, there's a certain understanding and certain like, it's kind of like in a broader or like a more specific sense, it's like that shared, like you go to school with somebody, right? You go to the same high school, and even decades pass and you still have that shared set of memories, that shared, what was up, you can be like, hey, remember coach so and so, or remember the lobby leading to there, remember the gym when they redid the gym, like things like that in a specific sense. But like in the 90s, it's like, hey, you remember TGIF, you remember like, you remember certain details, you remember Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, you remember like the Edge pizza, but like you remember it in a sense of like where you were at in time, right? Because people older than you are going to remember it, but they're not going to remember it in the same way or in the same like context as you, with that like wherever you're at age-wise mentality, like I don't know. It's like when I think of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, I'm specifically like the vibe, I'm like 8 or 9, and I can remember the scenes from the viewpoint of like an 8 or 9-year-old, right? So it's like there's a certain camaraderie with someone else who views that specific time from an 8 or 9-year-old, right? I don't know. It reminds me of there's this movie Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong with Jamie Chung and the guy from One Tree Hill, Jake. Oh, I can't remember. Not Jake Gyllenhaal. I follow him on Instagram. He's really cool. But he plays the dad. Like he plays the high school. He plays like Lucas's friend in One Tree Hill who has a baby when he's in high school. But anyways, in that movie, there's a line about like, like I think he was living in Hong Kong for a while and he was dating, and like, how it's a completely different culture, completely different set of like social and like political and economic like events happening in these specific times, right? So he was like essentially saying he misses just being able to talk to a girlfriend about Seinfeld, right? And that's on brand for today, right? So it's like that. It's like there's something so lovely about not having to explain it, but like just being able to remember it together and remember it like in a pretty similar way. You don't want to explain why Seinfeld's funny or why this certain scene is funny or why in context of like what was going on in the 90s, why it's like relevant or still like tracks. You just want to be able to laugh at it and like the other person knows and gets it right away. Like they know because they knew and they experienced it. And that's how I feel about the 90s. And like, I guess that's why when I see myself with somebody long term, and this is like just in like my daydream, like back of the brain, like I always picture someone around my age, and I wonder if that's a normal thing, if other people do that. But that's a big part of it for me, is like just being able to like have these shared timelines and like be able to kind of remember things in like similar ways, even though the experience is going to be completely different. But like just having these landmarks and like, things that kind of, I don't know, that you don't have to explain about. You don't have to explain, 90s culture. You just kind of, you both lived it at a similar time. Like something about that just seems so nice. But it's not the end all of be all. Like in reality, it would be nice, but I'm not gonna base who I end up with on that. It's just something to think about, something that rattles in my brain, I don't know. It's kind of fun to. I wonder if you guys. I wonder if you feel like the similar thing. Like, do you gravitate toward people around your age, like especially romantically, because of that kind of ease of like not having to explain that, like your like big moment, like big eras of your childhood. I guess you don't have to explain that, like what it was like to come home and watch Ed, Edd n Eddy and Powerpuff Girls and Johnny Bravo on a Thursday, and just have that experience. Or like, trying Jawbreakers for the first time because you saw an Ed, Edd n Eddy got like a big old cheek full of Jawbreakers and it looked like the best thing you've ever seen in your life. But like, they don't make Jawbreakers that big, at least in like, I think you got a special order of that, right? Like, I wish I could find a Jawbreaker like the side where, like, if you remember Ed, Edd n Eddy, like the cheeks were like straight massive, right? And just a Jawbreaker just sitting in there, and this sounds so good. And no Jawbreaker ever lived up to the hype, ever. It just always, same thing about that. It just had that weird taste, right? It just, so chemically, like, it was chemical. It was like, could never find a good Jawbreaker. But Ed, Edd n Eddy made it look so good. Y'all remember Warheads? Like the pretty much sour Jawbreakers. Like, they were sour and they were like really cool shape, like almost like saucers, like spaceships. And they were like super sour, and my mouth's puckering just thinking of it. But like, I miss Warheads. Like, I don't know if they still make them. If they do, let me know. Like, somebody tell me if they still make Warheads. But I would usually just like put them in the corner of my mouth and just let the sourness like kind of like sting my cheek and just like get the flavor, because like it was too much to put them on your tongue. Like, just the sour flavor was just like too abrasive to go straight up. But like, if you put that bad boy in like a side pocket and just let it like kind of like leak is such a strong word for this situation, but like leach out. Let's go leach. Well, that don't sound right either, but just the flavor is pretty much just mixing along with your saliva and just like coating. It was like the perfect way to eat them because it wasn't too harsh and it would just like linger and last, and like the flavor was good. And then once you got the sourness out of it, they were actually really delicious flavors. Like, I remember they had the apple, and I know they had the watermelon. Like, the watermelon was my all-time favorite. Like, whatever flavor profile they made for the watermelon Warheads should exist in every single brand of candy. Like, if they had a strawberry or like a Skittle that was like Warhead watermelon flavored, sign me up. I'm taking 2 packages. Like, there's that's I love those. But anyways, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, like, I follow this 90s blog, and it's just like so cool when you have something so, I guess, so in common with somebody else. Like, I don't know, it's just nice when I say, hey, Ed, Edd n Eddy, boom, 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 hey, Ed, Edd n Eddy. Like, when I sing that, which I'm not insane, I sing that every day of my life, right? It's like actually my alarm to wake up in the mornings. But when I sing that, like, people, like, you understand it. Like, you can have a specific set of memories and attachments to that song, to that theme. And it's so nice to like kind of share that with people and have that bond. It's like weird. I don't know. It's so minute in terms of like of things, but like it's, to me, it's like massive when it happens. Like it's almost a paradox in that way, where it's like it's so specific, but when it's there, I love it. Like I actually cherish it. I don't know. We're just gabbing. We're just talking. Hopefully everything's looking good to you guys. Hopefully I haven't been muted for the last 2.5 hours. My goosebump hat. Yeah, let's see, what time is it? Might be about bedtime. Or I might check to see if anyone I know is streaming tonight. Dumbfounded is streaming, which I don't know if you watch any of his stuff, but he's a rapper from LA and he's really funny, and then he's got a stream with like 2 of his friends, and they're really funny, and I listen to that as like a podcast on there, like the replays and at work, and it's so funny. But I think Foozley's supposed to stream again tonight. I think she's doing more like GTA role playing, and I watched her last night, bro. My brother was right. My little bro was right. Not about choosing Gohan, because I mean, you could have chose Piccolo. Nobody's choosing Yamcha, right? Nobody. If you choose Yamcha, you're silly. You're absolutely silly. You're eating nerds rope in the dumb lane, my guy, because you do not choose Yamcha. You choose Tien over Yamcha, 100%. You choose Chaozu before you choose Yamcha. Yamcha's like a thin Yajirobe. And as a matter of fact, I would choose Yajirobe over I choose Yamcha. Anyways. He could have chose Piccolo. He could have chose Master Roshi. He could have chose Krillin. I'm pretty much like Krillin. Like, I look like Krillin. He could have chose anybody, but he chose Gohan, which, you know what? That's not a bad choice, actually. The more we just dived into that, dissected it, I'm just glad he didn't choose Yamcha, because I'd have to disown him. I love him, but if you choose Yamcha, you're out. You're out of there. But yeah, he was right. The Foozley role playing is hilarious. If you haven't checked it out, Foozley, she goes by Foozley on YouTube. She's one of the funniest streamers out there. I guess free advertisement for her, because I've been plugging her stuff since day one, pretty much. But something about her, just she's one of the funniest streamers I've ever seen, just naturally. Like, and I've said this before, but she's just got this way about her where she's quickly becoming one of my favorites, because you just put her on, and even if you're like half paying attention, you're gonna get a chuckle out of yourself. Like, she's gonna bring something out, like she's gonna say something, or she's gonna like relate to you somehow, or she's gonna tell a story about her past, or like something embarrassing, and you're gonna chuckle. So if you don't know who that is, or you don't listen to her, but you're looking for like a good vibe streamer, she's the one. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this 90s themed drinking stream. I'm just about done, and as you can tell, the silliness has been free flowing. Because like I said, I'm a lightweight, so that's all it takes. By the end of this, I'll be calling up my exes and inviting them over to watch Air Bud, which is probably the worst idea I can think of. But like I said, I'm a lightweight. What can I do? But no, realistically, I'll end up, whenever I drink, it's like if I drink, or if I have NyQuil. I guess it's the alcohol involved, but my dreams turn out like David Fincher movies. Is that him, David Fincher? whoever makes like the crazy, like, thought provoking movies, right? Like I told you, my dreams are usually just like happy go lucky, like very light, very friendly, usually like just ordinary slice of life like situations. But as soon as you introduce a bottle of Blue Moon, my dreams turn into like Oscar worthy biopics of like just the most insane, unhinged, but somehow still beautifully artistic like compositions. Right? Like they just have like I'll be like halfway through one of my drunk dreams and like there'll be a twist I didn't see coming and it'll just like, whoa, my goodness. It'll be like M. Night Shyamalan's like you just be like, whoa. And you in for another like 30 minutes of like this crazy ride. And by the end of it, you're like crying, you're clapping. Like, I kid you not. If I wish I could like screen record my dreams when I'm drunk, or not drunk, but like had like any kind of alcohol in me, like even like just one beer, because they turn into these like productions. Like there have been several times where I wake up and I'm like, man, if I could remember the exact storyline of that would win an Oscar, hands down. Best original script, like best original screenplay, hands down. And my acting in it, top notch. Like nobody could probably touch. Well, what's his face from No Country for Old Men? No, not Javier Bardem. The dude from There Will Be Blood. I mixed those two movies up. The dude from There Will Be Blood, who also played Lincoln, like whoever, I can't remember his name, but the dude who always wins, who's like the Meryl Streep of like, if you're in the category with him, it's like, well, I'm not even gonna get dressed. I'm gonna stay home because he's gonna win every time, and then he wins. So it's like, but he's the only one who touched my acting in one of my dreams, because I kid you not, I give some beautifully poetic performances in these dreams. Next time, if I have one tonight, I'll try to remember it and I'll recount it for you next time. I think what we're gonna do is, so today's Wednesday. I'm thinking we'll probably end up streaming Friday night or Friday afternoon maybe. Maybe we'll be a little UK friendly and we'll do like maybe a Friday at, I don't know, 5 or 6 p.m. Just switch things up. Eastern time. So what's that, like 3 days ahead for y'all in the UK? Aluminium. Y'all still using aluminium? Like there's aluminium. There's too many syllables for what that is. Aluminum. Aluminium. Y'all added a whole nother syllable. A whole nother. Y'all wonder why you lost the war. I'm talking about the Independence War. None of the let's not take it any more than that. I'm talking about American versus that OG fight. That OG clash. The American. Well, I guess it wasn't that OG. There's been so many wars before that. But that OG like English fight, that one where like, nah, we sick of saying aluminium. We sick of saying in it, right? We sick of saying, we're calling cookies biscuits, we're calling them cookies. Musket fire, right? Like, or putting things in 10 like little tins where you like pull back, like we're like tired of that. You're like, no, we want our stuff in jars. Make them clear so we can see what's in them. Even though sardines are not the thing you should put in jars. You don't want to see sardines before. Like, you got to kind of unveil those things and be like, you don't want to just see straight through to the whole mess of it. But we're getting so off topic. But yeah, y'all saying aluminium, my guy. Like, if that doesn't take you back to like reevaluate like what's going on. Like, I know Britain's taking some L's. Um, but a big one is probably saying aluminium. Like, y'all added a whole nother syllable for what? Oh, y'all just doing a lot over there. Y'all just doing a lot. But shout out to Idris Elba, because I love you, man. You a good one. You a good one. Actually, fun story. When I went to London, I met this really cool dude from New Zealand. New Zealand. I can't do accents, but his name was Nathan. And real cool dude. He was staying at the same Airbnb I was, and essentially we were flatmates because they say flat out there. It's another reason they took a L. But anyways, Nathan kind of showed me around because he'd been to London quite longer than I had. I'd only been there like a few days, and anyways, long story short, one day he invited me out to go to brunch with his friends, but you know me, like if it's anything before 10 a.m., I'm out automatic because I'm gonna wake up at 9, and I need a good hour, 2 hours to like prepare, like coffee up and chill out, listen to music, eat my biscuits, but we all know the cookies. And anyway, so at this brunch that I missed out on because I wanted to sleep, apparently he met Idris Elba out there. Like Idris was at the same cafe or restaurant, and he was eating with his girl or his woman, and they met him or they saw him. I don't remember if they introduced themselves, but they saw him, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Like, I'll be honest, I still choose sleep 100%. Like, he told me that, and like for a split second I was bummed, but then I remembered that at that same time I was snuggled up in bed, like just napped out. And I don't care how famous you are. I've always been this way. I'm not the type to get weird around celebrities or like treat them any differently than like human beings or people. To be fair, I haven't run into my fair share of celebrities, so it could always be different, but I'd like to think that I wouldn't. I don't think I would because I know myself, but there are very few celebrities that would ever I would like choose to go see them versus sleep more. You know what I mean? Is that making sense? Like, I don't even care. I don't care. My celebrity crush is like, let's say, also I was talking to my brother. I forgot Jessie Reyes. Jessie Reyes is one of my celebrity crushes. Like, she's up there for me. She's like just my type. Like if I like dreamt up almost my ideal type, like Jessie Reyes would be like pretty close. And she makes music. But like, so that like Jessie Reyes, who I'm like crushing on, let's say I heard she was going to be at my favorite tea spot in town, right? But I heard she's going to be there at 8 a.m. I can tell you with 100% actuality, I am never going to meet Jessie Reyes if that's the situation. Even if I knew, let's say with the stipulation, she's going to be there at 8 a.m. And if you don't see her then, you will never get to meet her in the rest of your life. I'm not waking up till 10 a.m., boys. I'm not doing it. And I'm such a fan of Jessie Reyes. Like, I love her music. I think she's adorable. Like I said, she's like almost my ideal type. Like, I feel like maybe we would vibe well, maybe we wouldn't, but like, when you daydream and you always vibe well. So like, I feel like that's a safe bet for me, but like, yo, that's 2 extra hours of sleep. Like, if I have to get there by 8, I gotta be up by 6 or 6:30, right? And when you get up that early, you just feel kind of weird. If you're not getting up for work, you just feel like kind of gross, like your throat's kind of dry. It's just like it ain't right. But if she can't get me out of bed by 8 a.m., I don't think anyone can. Like, you could list them. You can name anybody out there. It doesn't matter, famous, not famous. I like my sleep. I like my sleep. So like I said, my friends, like, they met Idris Elba in London, which would be a cool thing to do, a cool experience to say, but I was just as happy just sleeping by myself in my blankies, just dreaming, man. So yeah, I'm curious, is there any celebrity that would like get you out of bed, I guess, or get you, that's a weird way to phrase that, but like that you would show up early for, like get up and like pretty much, if a celebrity is in your town at 8 a.m. and you know you get to meet them, are you going to do it? And for me, it's always been no. Now, if we talking 1 p.m., we talking 2 p.m., all right, I'll do it. But also, I've never been the type to, like, I guess, fangirl over, like, meeting someone in person. Like, it's different. Like, if you see like a live show, like, obviously, like, it's different because they're performing, right? They're performing. Like, if I see my favorite band, like, I'm geeked to go because it's like, you know, they're going to be performing the songs that I love, and it's going to be an experience I can't get otherwise, you know. But, like, just meeting them in, like, a meet and greet or, like, just seeing them out and about, that's not that. Like, maybe I'll tell my family, yo, you know, one time I was walking down the street, I saw Conan O'Brien. But it's not something that, like, I would go out of my way or even, like, act any differently. I just like, oh, that's cool. Like, hey, I would maybe wave or, like, love your stuff. Even that's more than I would usually do. Like, I don't, like, I wouldn't even want or need their acknowledgement or to give them mine. Like, I would just, oh, that's cool. They exist. You know, I remember one time in college, this is just coming back to me, I went to this, like, kind of voting event thing. And I remember Rashida Jones and Adam Scott from Parks and Rec were there. And, like, that was like when I was really watching Parks and Rec. So, like, I might have even gone to that because I knew they were going to be there. I don't remember, but they were on my campus. Like, I was in the same, like, room with them. I got a picture, like, in the same room with them. And I was crushing on Rashida Jones too, because I think, she is so brilliant, and she's funny, and she's another one like Jamie Foxx and IU, where, like, they're so talented. Like, how can all that talent be in one human being? And then plus she's drop dead gorgeous. Like, it's crazy that, I don't know. But anyways, I went up there and, like, I was 19. Like, the peak fangirl age is, like, you know, 10 to 20-year-old, like, and I was just like, okay, this, like, awesome. Like, I remember I told my brothers, like, or my sister, like, someone in my family, I was like, yeah, you know, I was there with them, but that's it. It didn't change my day. It didn't change anything. It's like, oh, cool. Like, they're just people. They're like, yeah, they're in something, like, that a lot of people can see. But at the end of the day, like, they go home, they deal with the same issues. They got little dogs they got to take care of. They, you know, they struggle with, you know, time management and cooking dinner while they, on evenings when they're just tired of, you know, they get lonely. Little things like that where it's like, they try to keep plants alive, and sometimes they don't keep them alive and they die. Sometimes their eggs turn out runny. Sometimes they're delicious. You know, they're just like us. It's like, it's such a weird phenomenon that, like, just because more people see a person on a screen or like anywhere, like, that person gets, I don't know, built up to something crazy, like to an idol, or like I don't know, we put them on a pedestal just because more eyes are on them, right? And obviously there's a talent involved that, you know, they're really good at acting or singing or all this stuff. Like, it's nuanced, but, like, if you boil it down to, like, this person's famous because they're in really, like, visible like things that they can, like, they're just present on a screen. And now because of that, we're geeking out over them. Like, that's wild. I think honestly I would be more like starstruck. Who would I be starstruck for? It'd be I don't know, that's tough. I honestly don't know. I couldn't even tell you who I'd be starstruck. I definitely wouldn't be an actor or an actress. Like, I just don't, that level of like, is idolism a word? That level of like idolatry with actors just never made sense to me, because at the end of the day, yeah, some actors are crazy. Daniel Day-Lewis, that's his name. Lincoln. Daniel Day-Lewis, not Javier Bardem. There Will Be Blood. No Country for Old Men. Lost it. But yeah, actors are talented, but like at the end of the day, like it just never catapulted. It just never. I don't know. It just didn't translate to me. Like, why are we going crazy for Brad Pitt? Like, or any actor? Like, why is this like people screaming their names? It's insane to me. Yeah, they're good looking, but like, there's so many good looking people in the world. There's so many. Yeah, they're talented, but like, I don't know. I guess I would probably geek over musicians. If anybody, musicians or writers, like, would probably be. I know it wouldn't be an athlete. Like, with an athlete, I'd just be like, I remember I went to a Miami Heat Charlotte Hornets game, and I was like up close, pretty close. Like, I splurged and got like some like closer seats, and I remember seeing like them up close, and I was like, yo, like seeing Jimmy Butler, like I remember the game ended and the Miami Heat won, obviously, go Heat. But he came down the like tunnel, like to do press or whatever, and I was standing right there just to kind of get a good look, and like, this dude is big as heck. Like, it's something that, like, if you're a basketball fan and you haven't seen an NBA game, like, I encourage you to go, because like, simply just to see the scale of it. Like, I was in the stands and I'm like 5'10", you know, I'm 5'11" on a good day, you know, 5'11" in Crocs. But like, I'm standing at the edge of this thing, and Jimmy Butler is like coming down, and he is like almost like there's no reason he should be up to my waist, like from where he's at, like vantage point wise, no reason, but he is like, he's just massive, and he's like, his arms, like, I did not appreciate how fit, like how muscular these guys are. Like, seeing Jimmy Butler, like his whole arm was like the size of my, like, I don't even know. I can't describe it. Like, I'm pretty fit, and like, I don't feel small in many situations. But you see Jimmy Butler, who's like, I don't know, maybe 6'7", 6'8", maybe shorter. I don't know, but like still, but like massive, like sports fit, like pro sports fit, like blew my mind. So that's a different kind of like awestruck, I guess. It's just like, yo, that's crazy that you can eat just as much as I eat, but you can come out that big. Right? Like, I'm sure he's not eating any crazy amount of calories. He's just bigger. He just built bigger. Humans are crazy. That's wild. But anyways, what I was saying is, like, I was actually trying to wind this down, but I ended up winding up, right? But I guess what I was saying is, I would fangirl over musicians probably, or writers. Like, if I met, F. Scott Fitzgerald is obviously long gone, but if I met him, I'd probably fangirl, because I guess that's a big reason why I don't fangirl over actors, is like, I'm not a big movie, like, I love movies sometimes, like I got a lot of comfort movies that like, just I love because I watch them so much, and you know, or like I'm more of a TV show watcher, but even then, nothing hits me like a good song or album or a good book. Like nothing hits me like those two mediums, and so automatically I put them at a higher level in terms of like what affects me. But even then, like there's only, I want to give you maybe 5 writers and 5 musicians that would even make me feel even close to like, you know, those One Direction fans, like way back in the, like my sisters were One Direction fans. Like, I'm sorry, I put you on blast, but that was the time it existed, and y'all need to acknowledge that. You know, we had to live through that, so like now you have to relive through that. But they were Directioners, and like the fangirling level was out of this world. Like tears, like watching every interview, like just feeling just deep connection to these like 5 guys, right? And I'm a hairy girl, if I'm being honest. I'm a hairy guy. It was Zayn, but like now I'm a hairy all the way, right? But like the amount of love, like it was like Beatlemania. It was like that amount of like crazed fan behavior for that. First of all, I know me, and there's never a situation where I'll get to that point. Like never. And not taken away from the fangirling, because like I wish there was something that I loved to that extent where you feel this strongly about something. Like I don't know if I've ever felt that, like in that sense, like just losing your mind, going crazy like over this, and like all culminating to like when you get to see them live, and like that joy and pure elation must be like out of this world. Like 6 lines of Fun Dip kind of like crazed passion, right? But I can tell you right now, that's not who I am. That's never who I've been. And you know, I can't give you, in those terms, no one would ever get me to that level. But like, maybe let me think of 5 off the top of my head, just rapid fire writers and musicians, dead or alive, that would get me to even like, let's say a 10th of that, or like even a 10th of that's even tough for me. Like, let's go 5%. Like 5% of that One Direction mania. Off the top of my head, let's do writers first because that's easier for me. F. Scott Fitzgerald. If I got to meet him in live, like in person, I would get a little bit of that, because like This Side of Paradise and like obviously Great Gatsby, like those had such a profound impact on me. Like I just love the way he writes, and we'll get into this too. We're gonna go into a writer's episode too, so I won't spoil too much. But him, Haruki Murakami, love his stuff, love his writing, love his mindset. I got his book, what I talk about when I talk about running, which like this really cool like insight into his like his mind. So he would be one that would get me up to that level. Sylvia Plath, if she was still alive, there'd be so much I want to ask her, like so much to pick her brain. Like she would get me like, I maybe fangirl. Like if she was in town and it was like maybe 9 a.m., I would think about it. Still probably wouldn't get up, but like it'd be close. For do I even have a 4th? Man, see, it breaks down. It's like I'm thinking about anybody who would like elicit like an emotional reaction to meeting them. Probably Tolstoy. Actually, Tolstoy would get there for me. Like it'd be, it could be like, I don't know how I'd react. I put him on there. 5. 5. I would probably put in Edith Wharton. Meeting her would be really cool. But once again, like all those right there, I'm thinking of it. Like now I'm like processing it. They probably only put me like 1% of that One Direction like crazed. Like if I had to put a number on it, like I'd be excited to meet him, obviously, but like I wouldn't be like, it would just be like meeting another human being who like wrote something that really affected me, you know. And I would tell him, yo, like I loved it. It meant so much to me. But like I don't ever like, they're never like appeared to me. Like just because they created this awesome thing, I've always felt like everyone is in the same, like we're on the same plane. Like I don't care, rich, poor, you know, whatever your background is, whatever it is, whatever you create, you know, everybody has their own differences, obviously, but like we're all on the same playing field, all on the same level. And like I don't get along with people who don't. I don't get along with people who like have levels to it, right? To me, you're just you. You're just a human. We're all right here, you know? So that, I guess that mindset doesn't really do well with fangirling because like, you know, even I met Gregory Alan Isakov, who I put on my list, who's like you know, for context, he's my most listened artist probably of all time, you know. All his albums I've listened to front and back more times than I can even begin to count. And like they all affected me in like deep ways. Like one of his albums I listened to when I was deep into heartbreak, and like he just helped so much. Like all these things, like real, like you could have an emotional response meeting the person who created all this for you, right? Or not for you, but like created and you enjoyed it. And I met him. And I was nervous. I was nervous in a way that you're nervous to meet a stranger, right? I was very cognizant of that. Like I was nervous, but not in the way of like meeting an idol or meeting like somebody you look up to. It was more like I was just nervous in a way of meeting a stranger. Cause like I get nervous meeting strangers. Like like nobody, I don't know if anybody's comfortable with that. Like at least me, I'm an introvert. So it's like, but like, I was very aware that it wasn't like me seeing him up here. It was just me seeing him as someone I don't know. And like now I have to like form a conversation based on what? But so he would be like the most likely. And like I've already experienced that. And I know how I reacted. And it's exactly how I would expect. I was like, yo, you know, it was real cool to see you live. You guys are awesome. You know, your album like changed my life. You know, all you guys are so talented. You know, thanks for doing what you're doing. You know, you're inspiring people, so keep going, right? Which is really cool. And he ended up signing my record, and he said like all the well, which is like beautiful to me and profound. But like I made a joke of it at a time, and like I feel bad because like I was only joking because I was nervous, but like it's cool. Anyway, real cool dude. And now I'm thinking about musicians that like I would even be like nervous because like I honestly, and this is not being like trying to be humble or anything, I honestly don't think of people that way. So it's like I really don't have anybody like nobody that would just fangirl. Like I would just be awestruck. And I am such a big fan of music. Like I love music more than I love most people. Like, but it's just not how I think of people in terms of celebrity or like idol or any of that. Maybe IU, but like once again, it's only because she's a stranger and I think she's gorgeous and so talented that like I'd just be nervous to like start a conversation, right? So it's just like normal. It's just like it's just like me at a bar on a Friday night. Like a lot of times, like if I'm interested in somebody, you get those nerves, right? Like everybody does. So it's more that kind of nervous of like, you know, creating a conversation out of nothing. like it's more realistic approach. Like, all right, if I'm meeting IU, it's not like, oh, meeting some goddess, like, great. It's like, if I'm meeting IU, like, what am I gonna say? Like, what are like the logistics about, like, shaking her hand and, like, it's not necessarily like, oh, and then like tears fall on my face, which it might happen. I mean, she is a goddess, but like I've never experienced it, so I don't know. But I'm quite certain it would just be like me being like nervous and dry mouth, just because, like, what am I gonna say? Like, not only do I not speak Korean, but like sometimes I get nervous speaking English. Like, so, but I think this was a good one. I think hopefully you guys had fun. Hopefully everything sounded all right and you had fun kind of reliving the past. Going up on 3 hours, so I'm gonna call it for the day and eat some dinner and watch some Foosly. And my puppy's looking at me like he's ready for me to stop talking. So hopefully you had fun reliving some 90s vibes and nostalgia, and if you liked it, maybe we'll do a 90s part 2, because there's so many more we can get into. We can get into like the real guts of like grunge and like school. I didn't even talk about school. I didn't talk about elementary. Like, I didn't talk about any of that, or fashion, or so. We'll probably put a pin in it and do a part 2. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you had fun. I hope you're listening to my voice and getting something out of it, and maybe you got a few more chuckles on this one than usual, or maybe you're looking for warheads. If you find any warhead candies, yo, hit me up. Hit my line. Comment on this. Let me know where you get them, if they're still in stock, because I need them things. Like, yeah. Yeah, it was a fun trip down memory lane. Hopefully it sparked some memories in you that, maybe you got to think about your 90s experience for a little while. Maybe thought about your trips to Blockbuster or whatever. But yeah, so look out for me. I'll be probably here probably Friday afternoon, Friday late afternoon, early evening. I haven't thought about what we want yet to talk about, so if you got any ideas, drop a comment. But otherwise, I will see you guys Friday evening. I hope you're having awesome weeks. I hope you're gearing up for the weekend. We're almost there. Thursday nights are the best, so I hope you have something you're looking forward to this weekend. Hope you're cozy and staying safe, and the weather's warming up on you, and you're coming alive again. I know that winter depression is real. Everybody's stuck inside for a good chunk of most days, most weeks. So with everything thawing out and everything starting to smell like spring and starting to smell good, and the bugs and the animals are coming back to life, hopefully you do the same. You kind of thaw out and kind of feel glad to be alive again. But yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Sleep well. Stay cozy. And no more nerds ropes, okay? All right. If you come at me with some nerds ropes, I'm gonna slap it out your hand real quick. No nerds ropes. That's my one bugaboo. If I'm ever like dating a girl and she hits me with like her favorite candy's a nerds rope, I'm gonna hit that ant button. Nah, because I don't want my kids to have the mother of their child. Like, no, I don't want the mother of my children like favorite candy is nerds rope. Now they gotta go through their whole life with a mom who loves nerds ropes. What kind of life is that? Anyways. And heaven's just